The end is near. What is found after the Euphrates River dried up shocked scientists. For thousands of years, the Euphrates River has been a vital source of life and sustenance for the people of the Middle East. However, in recent times, the river has been slowly drying up, causing concern and anxiety for those who rely on it. Is the Euphrates River, which was once a lifeline for nations, now sending out a scary signal? Come with us on a thrilling adventure as we search for shocking facts hidden beneath the water that is slowly disappearing. Does this mean the end of time is near? Does this mean we have to prepare for a catastrophic event? We might need to get ready for a disaster that is about to happen. You'll get chills as the secrets come out. Stay tuned for a big reveal that could change everything. The Euphrates River is one of the oldest and most important rivers in the world. A lot of history was made at this river. The Euphrates River runs through parts of Western Asia but is drying up. The river has had problems in the past with lowering water levels, but why? And what is the importance of the Euphrates River? Some people connect the river drying up to the end of the world, but does this hold? I want you to watch this video till the very end as we break down the secrets beneath this famous river and the reasons why it is drying up. Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia are among the modern-day nations that are located within the watershed of the Euphrates River. The snowmelt that happens in the eastern highlands of Turkey during the late spring and early summer is responsible for around 90% of the runoff that comes from the basin. These highlands are located in Turkey's southeast. At this point, flood levels are often at their highest along the length of the river. But the important fact is, the Euphrates River is at risk of drying up due to climate change. Temperatures in northeastern Syria have risen by 1 degree Celsius compared to 100 years ago, and average rainfall has decreased by 18 millimeters per month per century, whereas, in my opinion, human impact on the environment could be driving the Euphrates, a cradle of civilization, to destruction, forcing people to leave a place they have called home for thousands of years. Meanwhile, the water level in Venice, Italy is so low that it is impossible to row a boat. In France, it has not rained for more than 30 consecutive days. In the Middle East, the Fertile Crescent is turning into a desert, leaving onlookers in awe. Recently, amid all the drought-related news, the drying up of the Euphrates River has sparked doomsday worries. Whereas, according to facts, the Euphrates River begins in Turkey but flows through Syria and Iraq. The river joins the Tigris before it empties into the Persian Gulf. It's about 1,700 miles long, and the basin's average size is 190,000 square miles, whereas this river is the longest in Western Asia. Typically, there is a higher water level from April to May, since there is more rainfall and melting runoff. Original vegetation also still survives along the river. For instance, the Euphrates River flows through a xeric woodland in the mountains of southeast Turkey. You can also find an array of plants and trees along the river's coast, including rose and plum, pistachio trees, and oaks. In drier environments, cereal grains like wheat, rye, and oat are common. In the Bible's Revelation, the drying up of the Euphrates River is considered, like the Zionist Jews, one of the signs of the end of the world. Is the predicted end of the world coming? The Iraqi Ministry of Water Resources warns that the river could be dry by 2040. We don't know yet if the situation will improve or not, but who knows if it will be filled with water again in just a few decades. Flows in the Euphrates River system have dropped to nearly half the average annual flow during dry years. The amount of water stored behind the Euphrates Dam has decreased from 14 billion cubic meters to only 10 billion due to depletion, causing the lake to lose 75% of its effective reserve. The drying up of the river has drawn a lot of attention to it. People are interested in science, geography, society, and at the same time, pay extremely close attention to the spiritual aspect behind it. And if you ask me, I think, the drying of the Euphrates is a complex phenomenon driven by a confluence of factors. Climate change, with its searing temperatures and erratic rainfall patterns, has significantly reduced the river's snowpack and glacial meltwater sources. Similarly, the construction of dams and irrigation projects upstream has diverted precious water, leaving the downstream sections parched. This cocktail of environmental and anthropogenic pressures has pushed the Euphrates to the brink, transforming its life-giving embrace into a cracked and sun-baked scar across the land. But that's not all, folks. If the Euphrates dries up, at least in Iraq, what will happen next in this nightmare scenario? Agriculture, livestock, and industries dependent on water would wither and die. Millions of people would lose their livelihoods and would not have access to plentiful, clean water for drinking and washing. This could lead to mass disease outbreaks, civil unrest, and the migration of millions of refugees into neighboring countries, including Turkey and Iran. War could conceivably result, burdened with increasing numbers of refugees. Iran might ally with Iraq to destroy one or more of Turkey's dams and release the flow of water. However, because Turkey is a NATO ally, this would obligate the United States and European NATO countries to defend Turkey and go to war with Iran and Iraq. So, you can see this problem is serious enough to wreak havoc not only in the affected countries themselves, but in the world at large. In addition, the drying up of the river also reveals many interesting and mysterious things. Let's see what we found. The angel at the Euphrates, as the sixth trumpet sounds in the Apocalypse, St. John, seen in the right margin, hears a voice from the golden altar. The illuminator identified the voice as the Lord's by including the bottom of a mandorla with the Lord's feet resting on an orb. The voice tells the angel with the trumpet to release the four angels who had been bound in the river Euphrates. In the miniature, these four avenging angels rise from the river with their weapons ready to fulfill their mission of killing a third of the people on earth. And when the river dries up, how will this story unfold? We know that these are demonic beings because they are described as bound demons, fallen angels, many of whom are bound in chains of gloomy darkness. God's good angels are not bound, but are free, as are some of Satan's angels. Ephesians 6:12 tells us that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. The region of the Euphrates, where these four angels are bound, has a notorious relationship to human sin. The first murder was committed, presumably not far from the Garden of Eden, in the Fertile Crescent region. See Genesis 4:8. The first war in the Genesis 14 Confederacy took place in that region. In Genesis 10, Nimrod began his kingdom there, and Babylonian idolatry sprang up in the region, which will be judged. See Zechariah 5 and Revelation 18. Others suggest that the four angels may represent fallen angels or demonic entities associated with the region of the Euphrates River. This interpretation connects with the idea that these beings are released to bring about destruction and chaos. But that's not all. Certain interpretations propose that the four angels represent actual historical figures or powers, such as military leaders or nations associated with the Euphrates region. This view links the imagery to specific geopolitical events or conflicts. God had planned significant destruction for the Roman Empire that had persecuted the church. That destruction was delayed so that God could arrange for his people's protection. Revelation 9 tells us that even after the damage caused by the releasing of the angels, the wicked did not learn any lessons and did not change. So, it can be said that the depletion of the Euphrates is just one of the signs of his presence. Everything reminds us that God is ultimately in control of these events, allowing or announcing each one. At no point in the end, times is evil allowed to run entirely out of control. Some interpret the four angels as symbolic figures, representing various spiritual forces or destructive powers at work in the world during the end times. And let me tell you this, they are seen as agents of judgment or instruments of God's wrath. If the four angels are indeed in the underworld, that might be the only thing protecting us. The earth separates flesh from spiritual screams that could drop large groups of spirit-flesh beings from spirit beings that can shriek in airwaves and vibrations lethal to humans. If that's true, we can't stop it from coming four shrieking beasts whose screams would shake the whole earth. Signs of human civilization found in the ancient Euphrates River indicate it once had abundant water. Together with the nearby Tigris River and the Jordan River, the three rivers basin formed a crescent-shaped oasis, historically known as the fertile land of the New Testament. This land can be said to be the largest oasis in the Middle East desert and is also the cradle of civilization. Here, scientists have revealed that life exists beneath this river, right at the Euphrates River. Humanity's first civilization appeared the Sumerian civilization. Sumer is an ancient civilization that emerged around 3800 BC. On top of that, An array of city-states, including Eridu, Nippur, Lagash, Kish, Ur, and the first city, Uruk, were part of their culture when they were founded in Mesopotamia in the Fertile Crescent, south of modern-day Iraq. Uruk was one of the most populated cities in the world when it peaked, with 40,880,000 people living there about 2800 BC. The architecture of this area is also extremely special. From my observation, each city and state of Sumer is surrounded by a wall built of flat, convex mud bricks. They even made pottery, weaved cloth, built many irrigation works, and knew how to use buffalo and cows to plow fields before other ancient civilizations, such as Egypt and the Yellow River. However, this civilization did not last long. In 1940 BC, Sumer was invaded by the Elamites, who looted the city-states. Then came the Hammurabi dynasty of Babylonia, unifying the lands of Mesopotamia, and the Sumerians perished by around 1700 BC. The Sumerians were gradually assimilated with the Assyrians and Babylonians, but once the Euphrates River dries up, many things will be revealed. Scientists found signs of the presence of writing, astronomy, mathematics, geometry, and medicine in the ancient ruins left by the Sumerians. Among them are many achievements still used by modern people today, such as the multiplication table, methods for calculating area and circumference, and techniques for performing craniotomy. Whereas the Sumerians developed weapons and objects to support their many wars, including spears, bronze helmets, leather or wicker shields, and combat vehicles like chariots and carts. The message about the rivers drying up suggests that Jesus is coming back. The Euphrates River holds extreme importance to the children of God. About 4,000 years ago, Abraham followed God's summons from his hometown, Ur, across the Euphrates River to Canaan, which roughly corresponds to modern-day Israel and the west bank of the Jordan River. This land was given to Abraham and his descendants, known as the Promised Land, with the Euphrates River as one of its boundaries. The end times have been upon us since the ministry of Christ, marking 2,000 years of waiting. Instead of worrying about whether the sun will still rise tomorrow, we should be prepared for the return of Jesus. Thus let us put our trust in what Christ said. It will come as a thief in the night, and no man knows. Faithful people will be ready, not just mentally and physically after they have confessed their sins, but also spiritually. They won't have to worry or feel anxious about their employment. The purpose of these indications is to give us the confidence and fortitude to know that, whatever the difficulties we face, we are headed in the right direction. Instead of worrying about when that wonderful day will come, let's live each day to the fullest, confident that our efforts will be duly noted. But the main issue here is that the Euphrates River is drying up, whether through natural or political causes. Trust me, it makes a big difference. What is significant is that John prophesied 2,000 years ago that it would happen as one of the signs of the last days. Believe the Bible or not, it seems to be coming up with some pretty strong evidence that Christ will soon return. Be prepared to meet him. Besides that, the river flows from the Garden of Eden. While waiting for real signs to happen, let's learn more about this historic river to prepare thoroughly for everything that can happen. The Euphrates is the longest river in Western Asia, originating in Turkey, flowing through Syria and Iraq, finally emptying into the Persian Gulf. It has a total length of more than 3,000 kilometers, about half the length of the Yangtze River. And facts suggest that the river's water mainly comes from rainwater and melted snow. Believe me, the Euphrates is also one of the most historically significant rivers. You must be thinking, why is that so? Hear me out. It appeared in a rocky cuneiform script about 5,000 years ago. At that time, it was called the Banun River, the sacred river. It later appears in the Bible centuries later as one of 4 rivers flowing from the Garden of Eden, the promised land of Canaan. The area east and north of the Fertile Crescent is the famous Mesopotamian basin, home to 2 great rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates. Every spring, river water flows in, bringing fertile alluvium to the southern plains. Whereas the river had many rich fishery products and the wide riverbed helps waterway transportation be quick and convenient for trade and commerce. Therefore, I think, since ancient times, the Mesopotamian basin has been the fertile land of the Middle East and has given birth to many ancient civilizations. Note that Abraham's homeland and the once glorious kingdom of Babylon were all located in this land. Egypt, located to the west of the Fertile Crescent, was also a very rich land. Interestingly, in the middle of this land is the Jewish promised land of Canaan. However, it is much worse now. The Jordan River flowing through Canaan is narrow and short compared to the two major rivers. The land on both sides of the river valley is largely infertile and not favorable for farming. This is strange. Why is God's promised land so barren? Natural water sources in the Canaan area essentially depend on rainwater. Every year around November, there is an autumn rain that moistens the dry land, making it loose and very suitable for growing crops. In March and April of the following year, there will be another spring rain, so that plants have enough water to grow, which is also important for having a good harvest. Without autumn rain, the land cannot be planted, and without spring rain, crops cannot be harvested. If God's people follow his instructions, he will send down two rains at the right time, making the weather favorable, and life will be prosperous.